living over in Amsterdam, I'm not a best ball maniac because unfortunately, Underdog is not over here yet. But fortunately for you, we have someone who is a maniac in these best ball streets all the time. We're going to go on Underdog. We're going to draft a team, talk about it round by round live, and see what we should do and what you should do in your best ball drafts. This is Best Ball Mania, the Best Ball Mania 5, I think, for Underdog. We are the Best Ball Maniacs here next. Welcome into the double FU, the FU times 2. I, of course, am Jeremy Shulman at FF_Rebel. This, of course, is friend of the show and frequent visitor and a guy you need to listen to about best ball and all things fantasy, Ryan at RyanPros_FF. Ryan Prosick, how are you, sir? How you feeling today? And are you ready to draft on Underdog?
I'm always ready to draft. Of course, I'm feeling fantastic. I brought this up at like what, 2 in the morning, 2 in the morning my time. Yep. So I'm always ready to draft best ball. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to see what pick we get. Excited to talk strategy because there's so much strategy. Of course, it's all luck in the end. But if you hit 1 or 2 of those late round picks, I was showing you one of the winning teams from last night in one of the smaller contests because I was in the final. Kyron Williams late. It didn't matter that they picked Cam Akers early. So it's all about luck, but you got to hit on some picks late. So let's see if we can find those gems.
Yeah, and we were just talking about the Scott Fish Bowl. We just got off that pod. Again, another massive tournament with, I don't know what it is this year, but it was over 3,000 last year. It might be closer to 4,000 this year. But when you're in a tournament, with that many people, you really just need to take upside shots because it is a ton of luck. With that said, people wouldn't watch us if there wasn't a tiny bit that they could learn and the tiny edges that they could search for. So with that said, let's pull up the Underdog draft here. And Ryan, for people who don't know or people who might want a refresher because maybe they're just getting back into these best ball streets where you've been living for months and years here, what are we doing here with the BBM 5? What is it? What can we hope to win? And how is it set up?
Yeah. So anyway, my best ball summer started in February. So I was doing drafts before the actual NFL draft. I showed you my Jalen Wright exposure. I was drafting Jalen Wright at the end of the drafts just because I knew NFL valued speed. So here we are all the way in July. And so for Best Ball Mania, obviously I'm going to scroll up here because we're going to talk about the round advancement first. 2 out of 12, and then you're going to get placed into a pool if you win your first overall out of, I believe it's 14 weeks. I just had to double check there. And then you get put into a pool of 13 people and you have to win that. It's not easy. Trust me. I've had so many teams go down in the quarterfinals, semifinals, and it's not easy to get past there. You need a lot of luck. I believe Adam Thielen carried me, or no, it was DJ Chark in his week 16 where he had that big week 16. I don't know what team I drafted him on, but I drafted him on one and he carried me through. So you need some miracle performances. Yeah. And then it's 1 of 16. And then it's the big 539 seat final, which you make a lot on your entry fee, almost $4,000. I can't do the math in my head real quick on how many X that is, but so somebody knows. But you'll get paid out as long as you win your first tournament pool, which is 2 out of 12. So if you're in those top 2 teams, you're moving on. But you said Scott Fishbowl was 4,000. Obviously, Scott Fish mainly enters those teams. He's an absolute animal. He's amazing. It's no computer sim like Underdog is, where they have the capacity to put in 600, 700,000 people in their flagship contests. But there's so much to do on Underdog. We're only going to get into it with Best Ball Mania today. You could see in the corner of my screen, there's weekly winners, which is basically DraftKings kind of scoring every week, or the Underdog scoring every week, and your team gets put into a pool with all the other teams. And if your team's the highest scoring that week, you win that week. And I forget how much it is exactly because I didn't play it this year yet, but it's a lot of money. So there's a lot of money to go around. You see the contest in the back, but we're focusing on Best Ball Mania, their flagship contest, 1.5 million a first. I don't know if there's any DFS over there where you live, but this is fantastic prize structure. 10% of first it's like the big to do for the fantasy community because there's some contests out there where it's 30% to first, 50% to first. It's not easy. It's 0.00001 chance to win one of these contests, but you like seeing this prize structure up top, and you got 5% to second, and so on. So let's talk a little bit about the lineup. We're going to scroll all the way down. Another big thing to highlight before I get to the lineup, Underdog is 0.5 PPR, so it's half PPR. If you play on DraftKings, it's full. It's very important to know the difference if you're playing between DraftKings and Underdog. So that's the only big setting that's really different from other sites. And then for the starting roster, you have one quarterback, one running back, two running backs, my bad, 3 wide receivers, 1 flex, and a tight end. And then you have the bench. And obviously you could take this many different ways. We're going to get into the strategy a little bit more when we start it here, but this is just a little overview if you haven't played best ball. There's so much to get into. Like, we could sit here for hours.
Yeah. But absolutely, and we'll sit here for about an hour, but let's fire this bad boy up. And as you push play and we start to enter and see where we end up here, what is the kind of main strategy that you're looking to focus on? I know we have like week 17 game correlations, and we have, need to pay attention to the schedules in the playoffs, especially because we're a larger form tournament with more entrants. We want to make sure that we take shots on upside. We have to build with 2 or 3 quarterbacks and figure that out. But aside from all of those, or maybe it is one of those, what is the main strategy that you're looking to kind of take forward? And you have to do this one thing within this tournament.
Look, I last year was just big on picking the best player. It's somewhat worked out. Of course I was stacking. I wasn't throwing away the stacks, but this year I've been more into the game stacking, the correlation for week 17, because when you think about it in hindsight, it's really hard to make it there. And you want to maximize your odds when you get to that point. So say it's a dome game in Atlanta. I forget who they play. I have a cheat sheet up because I can't remember schedules for the life of me. So say it's Atlanta with Bijan and you have Washington. So you could draft Bijan here in the first, have a little Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin bring back. It is in Washington though, so it's not in the dome, but I'm really big in game stacking this year. I value that a lot more than I have in the past, and I think it's going to pay off. I hope it does. You never know, but
how are you feeling about Rams Cardinals week 17?
I mean, it's impossible not being on that. I'm going to try to zoom in this screen here a little bit, see if that looks any better.
Yeah, we're good.
Oh yeah, we're good. We're waiting for one person. Shouldn't take too long. We were waiting for 4 when we got in here about 2 seconds ago. So these contests feel generally fast. So it's tough if you want to, compete against your friends, but that's why there's the play against friends feature where you could invite people and you could. I did a couple of those last year. It was 3-person drafts. All right, we're filled. That's why the logo came up with the name. So let's see what pick we get. We're the 102. How about that?
Ooh.
I like that spot a lot. So first off, what I do is I usually look because I recognize some of these names. You draft a lot and you start to recognize people. You're like, okay, you don't know their strategy because everyone's always different, but you just recognize the names. It's fun to see the same people in here. That's what the red badge means. It means, you might play Underdog a little too much, but I do too. So, so what are we thinking? The draft starts in 20 seconds. We got the 102. Obviously, I think Christian McCaffrey is usually the 101.
Yep.
So what are we thinking here for the 102?
Well, personally, I love Tyreek Hill over CeeDee Lamb. It's really hard to argue between the two, but for me, it's one or the other. I can understand if you wanted to go Bijan in a half PPR format. For me, he's the clear number 2 to Christian McCaffrey in the run game. But for me, it's either maybe Bijan, but probably Tyreek Hill. If you're a big CeeDee Lamb fan, I wouldn't fight you hard. But CeeDee Lamb goes first. So who are we taking, Ryan?
So what are we thinking? You thinking you want to maximize with McCaffrey and try to go hero RB?
100%.
100%.
C. I love it.
Well, the 101 made that decision for us. I don't fault him for taking CeeDee Lamb at all. It's a very quality pick. I mean, he was an absolute monster last year. So now that we have McCaffrey at our RB1 slot. This is where we could take it a couple of different ways. You could zig when others zag. I see Eagles doing that with his best ball drafts. He's an absolute hero in the best ball community. He does a ton of drafts, and he's just an awesome person, is what I'm trying to get across. I'm trying to scroll down to our stacks real quick. So for week 16, it's at Miami, and week 17, it's at Detroit. Obviously, that poses a little bit of a problem because Tyreek Hill's gone, and of course, Amon-Ra is going to go here in the next 2 or 3 picks.
Sure.
So let's scroll down and see our options a little bit. I believe we're picking at 23, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
well, if you're interested in week 17, it sounds like a Laporta range right there. I mean, half PPR. I don't know if I love that for Laporta, but he'll definitely be around.
we could probably get him on
Jahmyr Gibbs could fall. I doubt it, but could, I guess.
I'm thinking we might see. I mean, Laporta we could get on the bring back to round 3 because he's all the way down here if we're feeling that. Obviously, Miami Detroit feels like it just feels like a high scoring game.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see what these other teams do. I'm watching the draft go by right now. It's mostly chalk. These players are the ones that go in the top 12 most often to not. No huge surprises here as of late, but I'm glad we're not seeing surprises because I don't know if you've seen, but there's been some people that throw the drafts halfway through, or they pick like the guys in bottom ADP and the draft gets thrown out. It's no fun. No, trust me.
Well, hopefully, now that most major sports are done, and people are starting to get off for the summer, they're going on their holidays, they're starting to get bored, looking for that fix. Fantasy football season creeps up earlier and earlier. There's a couple of NFL teams in camp as we speak. So hopefully everyone in this draft is ready to go and ready to take this seriously. And by the looks of these picks in the first few rounds, or at least the first round, they are. Can we recap maybe the first few picks? I know it went CD, CMC, and then Tyreek Hill. Who else are people taking in the first few rounds here, half PPR?
Yeah, so we got Bijan 104, which is actually a little higher than his average range. Like I say, you can't go wrong in round 1. Round 1's where you can't win the draft. You're going to lose it if you pick wrong. But, it's too early to determine that. You have Jamar Chase, Breece Hall, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, A.J. Brown, and then I got to scroll over. Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, and Marvin Harrison rounding out the first round. So, I mean, pretty chalk from what I've seen. Maybe just a different order at the end there. Preferences, if you like Puka over AJ Brown or one of the running backs instead. JT used to creep into that first round, but his ADP fell a little bit. As you can see, he's still on the board here at 205. So it's interesting to see we're up in 5 picks. I mean, the board's going to look nice because it's round 2, obviously. But what are we thinking? We thinking wide receiver? You thinking double running back? But then we got the wide receiver.
I got one here, and it could be double running back to fall to us. Do you think Achan's going to come to us?
I
because
think
you have that
so.
Week 16 stat.
I mean,
talk to me.
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. I think he's going to get to us, but it's tough. So when we think about this, if we want to go Laporta for week 17 and Achan for week 16, our wide receivers are going to be very weak.
Oh, good point.
And we have to start 3. So I think we make a choice here, Achan or Laporta, and then we can pick a wide receiver.
Agree.
So what are we thinking? I don't know about Ayuk. I'm a little hesitant on his situation there.
But that's an interesting stack possibility for us as well. But who would you take outside of Ayuk and Achan? Who's your other choice here?
Probably Mike Evans. We have 10 seconds. We want to go Mike Evans or Ayuk?
I prefer Mike Evans. So go for Mike Evans. And we'll try to work it out.
All right.
Yeah.
And then I think we're both in agreement on this to go a little early. It's above
Unless
ADP.
Achan falls.
I mean, Achan's there. Do you want to go Achan for the week 16 or Laporta for the week 17? I think we could do Achan.
I would do Achan. I love it.
See, I'm liking our start thus far. We have Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achan, and Mike Evans. So we're not totally lost at wide receiver. Of course, it's going to hurt to lose Laporta, but hey, maybe we could come back with a David Montgomery as an RB3 a little later.
Love it.
Jamison Williams, dart throw. I don't like his ADP all that much. He's one of the players that have probably one of the lowest exposures on thus far. So it's pretty interesting. I don't hate this draft at all. I actually like it a lot because the weekly upside is just all the way there.
Let's talk a little bit about the Detroit Lions real quick, because if we want to stack them with CMC, assuming that's the barn burner, it should be. We think about the fact that San Francisco is going to put up a fair amount of points on that Detroit defense. They're good, but they're not elite in my mind. That San Francisco defense is elite. So I love the idea of going after, since Gibbs is already gone, about going after Monty. That's really interesting. But what about maybe a lesser wide receiver like a Khalif Raymond in the last round?
You're speaking my language.
Yeah. Talk to me about that.
I was thinking that. I mean, if you want to get correlation, it never hurts to target these guys on high-powered offenses. Of course, you're taking a little bit of a risk if you do it on a team like, say, I don't want to pick on you at all, but it's the first one that came to mind because it's New England, because I'm always stacking those guys late. They're cheap and they hopefully will pay off. But I mean, Khalif Raymond had a couple decent weeks last year, and so did Josh Reynolds, but Josh Reynolds is gone now. I believe he's in Denver. So I mean, it's very easy to see Khalif Raymond getting there and being usable for 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 weeks. And as a last round pick in best ball, it's all you could ask for at this point.
Yeah. And just so you know, week 17, we have Bucks and Panthers. So since we have Mike Evans, that's something else to consider. We love Deontay Johnson. Jonathan Brooks is no longer a possibility because we have these 2 running backs. I think we'll probably Brooks might be a little too rich for us.
We'll see as the board develops.
You want Brooks? I love it.
We'll see.
What are you thinking here in round 4? I'm not sure how many picks until our
10.
But we got 10 picks. So what do you think we're looking at? If you scroll down slightly, I think we'll see we got McBride as a possibility. We got Andrews. So we could take one of these top tier tight ends. We could go like ridiculous on Lamar and maybe stack him with Andrews here as well, which could be interesting. Any of that appeal to you, or is there something else that you're?
I love the Lamar Andrews stack, and when I've noticed, I'm picking from the 102, and I get to that turn. If I don't take one of those 2, the turn just always double taps them both. And I'm like, maybe I missed out on that one. So I like the Lamar Andrews play to get a little stack there. I like Terry McLaurin a lot this year. Like you said, or like I said, it's really hard to differentiate. You just got to take some stands. This is where I widen the exposure, start to get to this range.
Sure.
Like, you don't want to take Trey McBride every time and say he gets hurt, then your season's over. So it's one of those things. I think this starts to get risky in the wide receiver range. As you can see to the bottom of the screen, it's where there's a lot of uncertainty in those wide receiver rooms. Of course, Keenan Allen and Jaden Reed are fantastic football players. It's just crowded in both of those receiving rooms.
Agree.
Calvin Ridley with the Will Levis. It's hard to tell.
You also got A-Rich sitting there, man. I mean, the quarterbacks.
Jalen Hurts is still on the board. So,
man. Pacheco.
Travis Etienne is a big target of mine this year. I really like his role in offense. Obviously not for this draft because we have 2 running backs, and going through running backs necessarily I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, agree.
I'm looking at the Lamar Andrews right here.
How many people in between us? Just one guy.
Just one guy or girl.
Yeah, I love it. I would do Lamar Andrews here, and I don't think there's going to be an issue. Or did Hurts just went?
No, that's Hurts. That's Jalen Hurts.
I think we're going to have it.
Fourth is a crazy steal, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, there goes my other choice, Terry McLaurin. So
I think it's going to happen.
I hope so. I'm ready and eager to double click.
I think we go Lamar first.
Yes. I agree. There's so many tight ends on the board.
Yeah, I think McBride or Kincaid will go before Andrews, even if he double taps, which he won't.
I know there's been a lot of tweets of people getting their stacks ruined. I hope we're not one of them right here.
Yeah, he's probably
In real
tilting.
time.
He's
In real
tilting right
time.
now.
I mean, he knows where we're going. Okay, if he goes
Yes.
double tight,
Oh no.
well,
Yes.
all
That
right, there
worked
we
out.
go.
That was
We're
nice.
gonna lock that in. We got
That
another
was
high
nice.
profile stack. I'm really liking our start thus far. We do need to target wide receiver now though,
Yep.
because the start three, we're investing heavy assets into running back, quarterback, and tight end. Obviously, hopefully that pays off, but we're going to have to start looking at the wide receivers a little bit down the board. We're up in 17 picks, so we got some time to look through the options. I'm just going to go straight here, and I believe we're picking around 70. So Lad McCon. Oh, there we go. Well, I know who our number one target is.
I love it. Question for you. So it's just one QB, right? It's not super flex.
There is super flex leagues, but not this one. They're all their main contests. It specifies if it's super flex right in the title.
And so again, sorry, I was doing a couple of things. What are we? We're starting 3 wide receivers. Is it 2 running backs?
2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a flex.
And a tight end, obviously. And that's
Yeah, of course.
it.
But we got that locked up.
Yep. Love it. Would you ever go? I've been doing a lot of double tight end builds. Would you ever do that in a tournament like this, where if I don't know if he's still on the board, he might have been taken already, but if a Kincaid fell to the next round, Kyle Pitts, who we love, yeah, those
They're
guys
both
are
gone.
fun. But if they were there, is that something that you would consider the next round and double stack tight ends, or it's just not worth it?
Yeah. I mean, it always pays to get different, you know.
Mm-hmm.
If you advance that team and you draft Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts and they both have a fantastic week 15 or 16 and you're there, and not many teams are going to have both of those guys, especially if they go off in the final week together.
Yep.
It's going to be a unique team, and you want to get a unique team. Obviously, you want to draft the best you obviously can, but in these lower contests, like you saw in the background, the puppy and all those contests, I try to get unique. Like I'll draft. Sometimes I double tap elite quarterback and I just don't touch it for the rest of the draft. Like I think, I believe it was Lamar and Stroud the one time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Lamar A-Rich, and then I just don't touch it. Like I don't go to like a Daniel Jones late or someone like that. But it pays to be different.
What are you thinking here? Because we have the potential. I assume 2 is still on the board. I assume Purdy's still on the board. We have the potential with those guys to kind of pick a middle tier quarterback for those weeks that those guys go off and Lamar doesn't. And obviously you can see Purdy is down there.
Purdy's all the way down.
And I think Tua must be even further down, right? So we have the opportunity later to stack those guys with pass catching running backs. Baker, if we wait even further, to stack with Mike Evans. So I think we're set. And like you were saying earlier, it's just time to hammer wide receiver, isn't it?
Yeah, it's time to hammer wide receivers. I was thinking Baker. There goes Deontay. Shambles. But anyway, you know, I think Baker's our guy later. If we want to stack one of those middle QBs with one of these guys, I'm not opposed to that either. I just think Baker feels like a no doubter. You know, maybe we could have got the double stack Chris Godwin, but he goes here. So I think this is the range we should start looking. The Christian Watson, Lad McConkey, Brian Thomas, and then obviously Jordan Addison. But
you think D-Hop falls?
You know, it sounds like that group that I was talking about isn't the one that's falling. But I'm open to D-Hop if he falls. I'm not overly in on him this year.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, you gotta mix in your exposures, and I don't have a ton of DeAndre Hopkins. Usually at this point, I mean, in the past, I was drafting Deontay Johnson here like 200% of the time. But,
yeah. That ADP is climbing.
Yeah, it is. So is Brooks. I think Brooks his ADP is still 87.6. So it's not so terrible, but it's higher than it was.
Yeah.
So we're looking. There goes Keon Coleman. I think that's a stack for that guy. No, it's not. He picked the other quarterback. He picked Hurts. So do you want to go D-Hop if he falls? I'm not a big Lad guy, and I'm not a big Brian Thomas guy. And Addison scares me with the suspension. See, this is the problem we run into when you invest premiums in other positions.
Well, is it worth looking somewhere else? because otherwise in
We have
half
Rashad White
PPR,
and Kenneth Walker.
yeah, or there's David Montgomery.
That's true. I think we get him on the. What are you
This
feeling
is a
here?
real tricky one. I would probably go with Walker in half
I
PPR.
agree.
Okay.
We just gotta
Yeah.
make sure those we're picking wide receiver.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, but
We
that's
have
okay.
to pick wide receiver.
So look, we have Walker. Is it worth going JSN here for the big boom weeks, or do we want someone like? Because there'll be a few. I just don't know if there'll be enough of them at this point in the draft, or do we want to go someone like Brian Thomas, who should have again the same sort of scenario? I trust the Seattle offense that's coming in more, and he against all of these other guys is for me is the play in this range. I think Curtis Samuel's way too high,
We'll,
but for
we'll
me, it's JSN.
we'll go JSN here. I'll give you. I'm not overly sold on. I'm not overly sold on Brian Thomas. I'm trying to get the thoughts out here.
Yeah.
I'm not sold on JSN either, but it's one of those when you're drafting with the pair and you don't have a strong stand on a pick, you usually just defer. That's what I do if I'm ever drafting and with
Well,
one of my
let me
friends
make
gives me input.
let me make the case here. So first of all, we got two Seattle Seahawks right there. So I think that's helpful if we instead of going Baker, we can pivot to Geno later, which makes a lot more sense. And personally, I'm more comfortable with because Ryan Grubb is coming in, the new OC of that offense. Tyler Lockett came back for lesser money, restructured his contract. We have talk of Noah Fant getting involved. We have what has to be a better offensive line there in Seattle because of all the injuries that they suffered last year, and their defense is worse. So I just think that Seattle is going to have to air it out as much as possible. I think this offense is going to look a lot like what people hope the Chicago Bears offense is going to look like this year. The problem is the guy who was running the offense in Seattle last year is running the offense in Chicago this year, Shane Waldron. So who knows if that's a Shane Waldron problem? I know Ryan Grubb doesn't have a problem getting the ball and having it distributed to three elite wide receivers. We saw him do that for the Washington Huskies last year in their championship run that came up just short. So I love the Seattle, value of those guys. Walker and JSN for me, massive smashes right there.
Hey, I'm all for hearing it. It's kind of funny because they play each other in week 17, so it might be the big deciding factor. I believe the game is in Chicago though, so we'll see about that. We'll see about the weather. Obviously, it's impossible to predict the weather, but so we are 12 picks away. A lot of running backs to this point. Brooks Najee just go. The top of the board is littered with them. I agree. Curtis Samuel is a little too high for my liking.
I like him too. I just think, that price is a little ridiculous. You can see the spike weeks, I guess, but I don't know. I don't think there's much of a spike week available there in Buffalo. They're going to play things a lot closer to the line of scrimmage, I think, than people want.
Mm-hmm. So looking at our wide receiver targets, because obviously with one quarterback, three running backs, two wide receivers, and a tight end, you gotta hammer that wide receiver position. I expect Curtis Samuel and Cortland Sutton to be gone by the time we pick.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what intrigues me. We have two pieces of the Seattle offense. Do we try to lock in a third with Tyler Lockett and then come around with Geno late? That's if you believe in the offense, and it sounds like you're a believer in the offense.
I am.
I'm on the fence a little bit about it, but I mean, it could be a viable possibility to go Tyler Lockett here.
Yeah, I think Lockett's really interesting, but I want to see him fall. Like, what round are we in here? About to pick up? What round are we?
We're about to pick 8.
Eighth round for me, and Tyler Lockett is a little too rich. I think I've been skipping him because he just goes far too early than what I'm willing to pay. But it is half PPR. We know Tyler Lockett is good for 6-7 touchdowns at least. I think he'll have 1,000 yards again. He'll just have to be the hyper efficient version of Tyler Lockett that we've seen because I think JSN is much more involved. But this offense is going to be vastly improved. I mean, Tyler Lockett did it last year. He went for 1,007 last season on 80-ish, I think, receptions. And that offense was not good, and the offense is going to be much improved now. Lockett in the eighth is a little rich, but also nobody wants him. Maybe he falls. So I'm not sure if that's the same in best ball though.
Yeah, wide receivers rise up really quick.
Yeah.
And we do have two, so it's not bad. We invested heavy in other positions. But
there's a guy on the board here that I love, though. It might be a little early, but Rashid Shaheed, especially in the best ball format.
I love him too. So like I was gonna campaign for him either the first pick or the second pick of our turn. So
you don't have to.
I think we try to get one of these top guys if RBs keep flying off the board. Maybe a Cortland Sutton and then pair him with Rashid Shaheed. Give us 4 wide receivers. It kind of evens out to the build that I usually have at this point, like a 1-3-4-1 kind of build if I'm doing elite quarterback tight end stacks.
Sure.
Like you just need a bunch of wide receivers, and we might end with fewer running backs than usual, but it's just a price we have to pay, and we have 3 really good ones, so it's not really a price.
Can we see who else is on the board real quick? But I think you're right.
Kyler Murray is falling.
Wow.
That's about 15 picks past ADP for Kyler.
Who else we got? Bowers, Pollard, Daniels. No. Would you do Shaheed here to lock him in? And then do you care between Sutton and Lockett? Is there a big difference for you because we're looking for that Geno stack? Is that a big difference?
No.
Then
I think we lock in the guy we both heavily believe in this tournament. Yeah. And we hope that one of them comes back, which one of them is obviously going to come back. So
yeah, well,
double quarterback. I like that. So here's the decision: do we want to go for the double Seattle stack with Kenneth Walker? Do we just want to invest in Seattle offense?
I've got an opinion, but what do you think?
I'm okay with either. We have 10 seconds.
I like Lockett. I think Lockett isn't, Sutton could end up having a little bit more upside, but Lockett, I think we have to get Geno at this point. I don't think that's necessarily a problem, but we have 3 Seattle Seahawks. We're invested. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at where Geno is and when we have to take him.
167. So
okay. Starve his ass and make sure that we're
actually. I could look at this. I could bring it down.
Okay.
Of course, we pick at 167 with his ADP.
I love it. I'm happy taking him around earlier.
I don't care if it's 20 over ADP. Sometimes you have to get your guy, and especially like if it works, if the Seattle offense works, it's going to be probably better than most that are in that range. So I'm good with taking him 3 rounds from now, 2 turns from now. So we're 14 picks away. I say we recap the team. So we start with Christian McCaffrey in the 102. We have Mike Evans at 211, Devon Achane at 302, and the Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews stacks around 4 and 5. And then we invested heavy in Seattle with Kenneth Walker and JSN at the turn. And then we just drafted Rashid Shaheed and Tyler Lockett at 811 and 9-2. I'm liking the way this is shaping out. It's a little light on wide receiver. I'm glad we got Mike Evans to, kind of be the hero wide receiver of our group.
Sure.
But I think Kenneth Walker is going to start most of those weeks in the flex, so I think we only have to worry about 3 wide receivers.
Agree. And you were talking earlier, right, that you need to be a little bit different, a little bit unique in these builds. If we can hit on some later wide receivers here, if we can grab Geno and maybe a second tight end, just in case, would you grab Likely at all? In case he has standalone value and in case Andrews goes down, or is it just not worth it?
I don't think it's personally worth it because you're going to take zeros in a lot of those weeks. And
fair. It's a good point.
If Mark Andrews doesn't score well and Lamar doesn't score well, Mark Andrews probably isn't going to score well. And if Mark Andrews doesn't score well, it's just like it's like one of those dominoes things where you flick it and everything bad happens.
Yep.
It's one of those memes. I mean, looking at tight end, there's a lot of guys I like late. I mean, I've been heavy on Jonnu Smith. In Miami, I like the offense. I think he's going to be the starting tight end there. Got Benson. He's your guy. I've been drafting him a fair bit too. It seems he's a little late. He might be propped up a little bit by what Sam Laporta did, but there's a lot of options down here that I'm okay with, especially when we have Mark Andrews. But we are 5 picks away.
Yeah.
We have
Let's
Trey
check out the
Benson,
wideouts.
Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams, Dallas Goedert. I was looking at Wicks, but he just went there. We have Jacoby Myers and A.D. Mitchell. So what are we looking at here? I think we're not done with wide receiver, but Trey Benson is a little tempting, and so is Brock Purdy.
But how many QBs would we take? Would we take 3 with already having Lamar Jackson?
I wouldn't take 3. I think we could wait. There goes Brock Purdy anyway. That solves our problem for us. So,
can you scroll down to see who the next wide receiver is?
Mike Williams, and it's a little bit for Josh Downs.
No, so I don't mind A.D. Mitchell. I think that's interesting. I think he's really good, but I don't love him. I'm with you. If we need to fill a flex, you could fill it with Trey Benson. But Jacoby Myers, I think, scored something like 7 touchdowns last season, right?
8.
How many did he?
He scored
8.
6 the year before.
I mean, half PPR, 8 touchdowns. This is a really tough one. I would go Trey Benson, like you said, or I could go Kobe.
I'm looking at our bye weeks. Actually, let's go A.D. Mitchell. We'll count for the bye weeks.
Don't hate it.
I see. We have Seattle's on a bye week 10. So if 2 wide receivers are tied like this or really close, I'll use bye weeks as, of course, the tiebreaker.
I love it. Who do we want to get here? Trey Benson is still on the board. I know we have 3 running backs, but we could essentially close out running back here, or we can go Jacoby Myers and just bank on hopefully 8 touchdowns again.
Well, you want to bank on the 8 touchdowns considering Trey Benson just went?
I think we're going to have to, but can you scroll down slightly in 10 seconds?
Nick Chubb's down here.
Nope.
No. Jacoby Myers? Lock it in?
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. So see, now I'm really liking our team because we have 1-3-1 or 1-3-6-1. We start 3 of those guys. Obviously, week 10 might be a little rough, but we'll probably draft another wide receiver and give us 4, but we'll do that later. So now we could come around to, well, obviously we're drafting Geno on our next turn.
Yeah, we have to, right?
Because if we lose out on that, that's another big proponent of how I draft. Of course, sometimes I don't realize it because I'm not sitting here talking it out with you. You know what I mean? Sometimes I miss. And I'm just like, oh, he went 20 picks, or he went at his ADP, and I just kind of missed it. Sometimes I don't do that all the time. It's like 1 or 2, but usually they go before ADP when I say that. I just miss it.
But where is Geno in the QB pool still?
He's still got a way to go.
Yeah, I mean, we could risk it, right? This is kind of the risk that I'm comfortable with. The risk that I'm comfortable with is letting it fall to the point where we don't get him, because if we do get him at value, we're picking up 2 additional players, or at least 1 player, a full 2 rounds ahead of where we would get him later. It's kind of like, do you want to get Geno or I don't know who's going to be available, Ricky Pearsall, or do you want to get Mike Williams and then still get Geno 2 rounds later? And that for me is the type of risk that I'm usually comfortable taking in drafts, but I guess we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm looking. A lot of teams have 2 quarterbacks, Dak, Daniels, Stroud, Murray.
Who has DK is my question.
That's a great question. My eyes aren't scanning as fast as I want them to.
Let's see. Should be around.
It should be around up in here.
Yeah. Is this everybody? Or do you have to? Or can you scroll over? Or is this all 12 teams?
This is all 12. Why am I not? Did I miss some?
Was there an insane value on DK Metcalf?
Did we just miss some?
Oh,
no, he's right here.
2-9. Yeah, and that team is before us actually. So if they don't take DK here, or if they don't take Geno here, then we almost have to take Geno.
Yeah, we're still doing it. 20 picks above.
How many quarterbacks does that team have, real quick?
That's a better question. I think they have 1. They have 1. We're pulling. Yeah. We're pulling Geno here. I know it's 20 picks over ADP, but if you're paying attention to the board like this,
yeah,
he might be eyeing that as well. It's his number 1 wide receiver. I mean, he didn't get the Terry McLaurin stack, so that might be.
Although he has Kyle Pitts, so it's also possible that he's looking at Kirk Cousins. If he takes Kirk Cousins here,
You want
do
to
we
wait?
risk it and wait on Geno?
Yeah, I think we base our decision off of his. I mean, he always
Okay.
has the late route open with Neighbors and Daniel
Yep.
Jones if
And
he misses
Levis,
out.
he's got D
It's
Hop as well.
I don't know if I want to chance Gino though. That's the thing.
I hear you. All right. So
He's
outside
five
of
picks away.
quarterback, who else would we take? What wide receiver would we take? Or you like Fryermuth?
I'm not a big Fryermuth guy. I mean, I might like Cole Kmet for the little Chicago bring back on week 17
Yeah,
with
it's a
our
good
guys
idea.
from Seattle.
It's a good idea. I just can't. I can't with Cole Kmet.
I understand. I understand. I'm just thinking game theory kind of here.
Yeah. No, it's good. But I'd almost prefer to go like Gerald Everett last round, than like
I
than a
mean,
Cole Kmet.
I'm not opposed to Jawan Johnson at 203, even though he's injured.
There's also, don't forget, Noah Fant.
So this is the person with he goes Cole Kmet.
Okay.
So there's the
That's really
person
interesting.
with
Look at wide receiver. Who's available?
Leggett, Pearsall, Darnell Mooney, Quentin Johnston, Jermaine Burton.
I kind of like QJ. And who's available at running back?
Ty Chandler, Julian McLaughlin, Vidal.
I really like Ty Chandler, or I would go QJ upside.
I'm going Ty Chandler. I can't do it. I can't do QJ. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's burned me so many times. I understand.
So,
I understand the argument.
So
is this where you want to pull it on Geno?
No. How many quarterbacks are left? Let's see.
3 above him.
Who's at wide receiver? Oh, I hate the wide receiver range. How about tight end, real quick? I don't mind Fryermuth. Do you like him?
I'm okay with spinning on the value and risking it.
Yeah, let's
do it. Let's do it. Not touch it again. I have a feeling he's gonna take Geno, but we'll just take Baker then. It's tough, but
yeah. But that's the thing, right? Is like if you are risking it, I mean, we set it up, but the fact is, number one, people are not in, obviously, based on all the value that we got in Seattle. He could totally just ruin my argument here in 10 seconds. But based on the value that we got with all the Seattle guys, it's very likely that Geno makes it back to us. Is it probable? Maybe not. But you really need to play the board and play the people and try and figure out in these draft settings what's likeliest to happen for you so you can find the value. We took the value with Pat Fryermuth, who could potentially be the number 2 in that offense. I think at worst, he's probably the number 3. Now it's going to be a low volume passing attack. The running backs are going to be king there. But Pat Fryermuth in half PPR could absolutely fall into the end zone 8 times. And then I think we got a steal there. Whereas we're talking about the Noah Fants of the world later on, stacking with Geno, which I don't hate. But I think Fryermuth has the opportunity and he's talented enough to do something with it.
I think we're done at tight end.
Oh, yeah.
I think we only need 2. I think we could use one more running back. So we have 4 more picks left. I think 1 running back, 1 quarterback, and maybe 1 or 2 wide receivers. You could at least 1 more wide receiver. We could do 8, but we'll see how the board plays out.
Let's do a quick check on our Geno watch.
How's Geno? It's so Geno watch now. No quarterbacks have gone since we talked about it. So
I love it.
I have a feeling though. I mean, the longer Kirk Cousins stays on the board,
I agree.
I think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna last that long. I really like the late Darnell Mooney, Kirk Cousins stack.
I think our guy is going to take Cousins to stack with Pitts. I would over Geno to stack with DK. I don't know.
I don't know. Kirk Cousins is already 12 picks past ADP.
How about? Well, we have 2 picks coming up here. So outside of Geno, who I think will smash immediately, who else do we like?
Let's scroll down. Are we in on Rashad Bateman? I know.
With Lamar, I mean,
With
you might as
Lamar
well.
and I kind of like that a little bit.
Hmm.
I'm actually gonna start starring these guys so I don't forget.
Yep. I prefer Nelson Aguilar later, but
We could do that.
I don't mind the Rashad Bateman hype that Matt Harmon and others are putting out there. He's definitely a nice possibility. Oh, there's Deshaun Watson went,
Mhm.
and Fant has gone too. So I think we did well taking Fryermuth there with 9 picks away.
There goes. I told you. The
Okay.
Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney double stack.
Well, this is it. So go to QB. We got to be on QB watch
Oh,
here.
we're cooked. We are cooked.
No, we're not.
We are cooked.
Come on.
We gotta believe. I mean, he's down there on the board a little bit, but I think if we don't get Geno, we pivot immediately to Baker.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's not a question.
I don't like it, but it happens.
Well, and then I don't know if you want to get Cade Otton, but would you go like Trey Palmer or Jalen McMillan?
I'm more open to going Jalen McMillan or Trey Palmer over a third tight end in this roster structure.
Agree.
I think we're normally I like drafting these guys late tight ends, but here when you have 2 good options that are top 12, top 13 in ADP,
Ryan, 3 picks away.
The next one's the one we got to worry about.
It's not going to happen. Oh, he's only got 1 QB.
Yeah, that's why I was saying this is the 30 seconds. This is the 30 seconds that will determine our draft. All right, we're good.
Yes,
we're good.
Yes.
We're good. We made it through. All right, I'm immediately wasting no time in doing that.
Yeah.
All right. Ahead. So
I mean, we could check and see if this guy who has 3 QBs would take a QB. He probably wouldn't, but who cares? We got our guy. Exactly. Do we want to double tap with Baker, or do we prefer the rush? I kind of like Rashad Bateman.
I kind of like it too. Let's get as much exposure to that Baltimore offense as we can.
Agree.
Another guy I like. I don't think we need 3 quarterbacks with how we built it out.
Totally agree with you.
So,
do we need 3 tight ends? Is the question.
I don't think so either. I think our next priority is getting a running back that we want because Ty Chandler and Achane are both on week 6 buys, and taking zeros are not fun. So let's look at what we got at running back. Obviously, it's not going to be the greatest bunch considering we're this late in the draft, but there's some really interesting dart throws down here. There's one that I'm going to highlight.
Oh,
yeah. And this is the one. He's been getting gas on Twitter. He's been
highlight the guy 2 spots down from him as well.
Rashina, you were just talking about him not even half an hour ago. I mean, I like both these guys. Like, if you were to ask me, like, late round running back, these 2 would be up there.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go. I like Will Shipley a lot to win the backup role in Philadelphia. Sure. I don't know how much work we'll get, but you're drafting for upside this late. Estime with all the noise surrounding Javonte and Denver. Obviously worth a look. Tank Bigsby is the kind of guy where I'm on the fence over.
Agree.
Sometimes I'll take him this late, but not over any of these guys. The Tyrone Tracy, of course, he's another guy that I like a lot as well. So I really like late round running back. If you can tell.
Same.
So there's so many options for us here.
So I noticed week 17, the Houston Texans play the Ravens. Do you think there's any benefit in targeting? Where did he go? Dameon Pierce, in case Joe Mixon is hurt, or Pierce actually has a role, as they've been kind of. His coach has been hyping him up. This is probably
they have
in the offseason.
Contribute this year.
Yeah,
I mean, he's one that I didn't get to, but he's one that I would have starred.
Yeah,
this is kind of like my core group of guys late.
One more question: is Roshan, Khalil, or neither?
Neither.
Yeah,
it's tough.
It's fair.
I mean, they signed DeAndre. I'm not in on DeAndre Swift either, but like he's gonna be. I'm not in on any of them. It's tough, but big fan of what Swift did in Philadelphia last year. Obviously, his offensive line is worse for better.
Much.
Yeah. It's the one thing that Chicago needs to improve on in their offense, but you can't fault them for taking Romo Dunze at 9. So,
what's our total roster structure, and where should we be looking outside of RB?
I think wide receiver. I mean, you could always take a dart throwing quarterback. I don't like doing it when I have someone like Lamar. If I draft someone like Jaden
Agree.
Daniels instead of Lamar, swap them out
Yes.
1 for 1. I'm taking a
Yes.
third quarterback here 100% of the time, whether that be Baker, who's fallen all the way down here. I mean, we could
That's
do
wild.
that if you want. I mean,
Sorry.
I'm game for that. I know I'm kind
Who
of changing my
else?
philosophy a little bit, but
Sometimes you got to play the board, right? Like
you
who
got to
else
play the board.
is
And
there?
if he falls to our pick, I think we take him and just pair him with Mike Evans
Who else is there?
for quarterback or just
No,
overall.
just in general.
Isaiah Likely. I don't like
Eh,
McMillan's there.
okay.
We could
You could
do
double tap
this and then draft one of
Baker,
these guys in round
McMillan.
18.
There's no way the guy on the turn is taking Baker. He's got 3 QBs. So if he goes, we would go McMillan first and then Baker.
I'm down. And then draft
Unless you want to go like a Tyrone Tracy. I don't really care about Tyrone Tracy, to be fair.
I like him a lot, but I have enough of him on Underdog, if I'm being completely honest.
And what's our build here? We have CMC. Like you said, we need another
Mike
running
Evans.
back. So we're punting running back. And
so there goes McMillan. So
damn.
So do we want to? All these guys are going to be on the board basically for running back. Do we want to go with third QB with Baker?
Or Tracy. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. This guy's not going to take a quarterback. So if you want Tracy, take him now.
I don't really want Tracy, to be quite honest.
Yeah, take Baker. That's fine. We'll figure it out. So now
I like all of these guys. We could choose amongst ourselves.
So I like the idea of Damian Pierce, because it seems like we're just going to be taking running back, unless is there a wide receiver on the board that we like at all?
Tyler Boyd, Tez Walker. If you want to double up on Baltimore again, I think 3 passing options in that offense. A little much. Yeah. I'm cool with what we got.
Okay.
And then we have looking around here. I mean, Khalif Raymond. We were talking about that.
Too early, though. Too early.
Which running back do you prefer out of this group?
I'm happy with Sermon. No, take Tracy. He's the highest.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we can get one more with whichever one of these guys falls later on. What do you think?
Well, we have one more pick after this.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right, well then, what should we do with that pick? Should we go for the 8th wide receiver?
See, that's determining on our board a little bit. I'm looking at our wide receivers here. I think they're solid. I mean, another body would be nice. It's just, what's the upside of a Khalif Raymond?
Yeah,
compared to an Ollie or a Sermon. If say JT were happen, we don't, project
but
for
injuries. I would argue. I mean, maybe it's too many, but I would argue Nelson Aguilar has more upside than a Khalif Raymond, given our stack. Trey Palmer, in case of injury, and we still have our stack with, Palmer's proven to be good. And if Mike Evans goes down, I think he's playing. So those are a couple of guys that I would look to highlight. But our third guy is Gino. Who Jake Bobo.
I'm good on that.
Probably not a Jake Bobo.
I think we have our top 3 RBs and our top 3 wide receiver targets on the board. Yeah. It's late round. I'm okay with any of them.
How would you order them?
How would I order them? Well, I can't order Khalif Raymond because he just went. So I'd probably do with our team build. I'm a big Sermon believer. I'd probably order them like this.
It's hard to argue. It's hard to argue Sermon.
But our roster build makes me want to. I think at my roster build would make me kind of do this.
Yeah.
I do love Trey Sermon though.
My only thing is I think Nelson Aguilar has a rapport. He's a veteran. He's the lone deep threat. Tez Walker is there, but I don't think he's more than much of a boundary guy. They'll run him, but Nelson Aguilar will actually make plays downfield, and he'll have some usable weeks. I think we want roughly a guy with 3 or 4 usable startable weeks at
Mm-hmm.
this stage of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So I would argue for Aguilar. I don't hate Trey Sermon. We know Jonathan Taylor has those troubles staying healthy. If Anthony Richardson stays healthy, whoever's back there is going to eat. I don't have a problem with the top 3 guys. I love Rasheen Ali, but I don't think we're going to squeeze it in here, especially opposing Lamar Jackson, since I don't think he's going to be catching a ton of passes. Lamar just doesn't check down.
No, I'm okay with the top 3 as well.
All right.
I mean,
so who?
that's the question. I mean, I
Yeah.
think Jalen McMillan might be. I mean, he's gonna be this 3rd guy. So we're 1 pick away. Will Shipley went. I was trying to see who went off our board. None of the top 3. So we have all 3 of our options. You like Aguilar. I kind of like a wide receiver, so I'm just gonna box out Trey Sermon here as much as I like him.
All right.
So
then pick your poison here. I think Aguilar over Palmer, but it's so close, and we have so much Baltimore.
yeah,
8
you want to go?
seconds.
I think we go Palmer. Honestly,
I like it.
That if we didn't have, there's all my completed drafts. We'll look at this one. I can't.
So we're going to be splitting the 1.5 milli here, Ryan.
We can only
fun.
hope. So I'm going to pull up the draft board. I'm going to try to zoom this out, see how well we can get it on the board.
Nice.
I mean, that's a lot of rounds, but I can't get much more. So, what are you thinking of our draft? Do you like it? Did you have fun drafting best ball for the
It was
first
good.
time?
Yeah. I like the idea of best ball, and certainly you want to get the guys with the upside. And build your bench, especially with those guys. So I think it's definitely interesting when you're on the clock really quickly and you have to discuss it with somebody else. It gets tricky. Looking back at the draft, I probably would have taken Tyreek Hill first, only because I think that would have made our build more interesting. In later rounds, and been able to kind of catch some of that falling running back value, which is happening everywhere in drafts this offseason. It's just kind of that swinging pendulum nature.
I mean, look,
where
3 to 9.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They dominated the second round too. It was 3 to 9 again. So,
I mean, that's how we got
6
in the third. That's how we got Achane in the third. But I would have been happy with Achane as our RB1. So if we went Hill, that would have made me feel a lot more comfortable. But it would have influenced things, right? Like maybe we're pushing for Tua a little bit earlier. I love the Seattle stack with Geno later. And even though we didn't get DK, who I absolutely love this season, I love all those other options there. So yeah, CMC I think was probably the best choice. Even though I like Hill better for the way we could have built, we would have tried to get to it, and that could have been a problem. How are you
definitely
feeling
agree.
about it?
I wanted to scroll down and look what that team did that passed on Geno. He did get the double stack with Will Levis and Hopkins and Daniel Jones and Neighbors. So they played it right too. Like there's no wrong way to play this, unless obviously you're tanking the drafts, like I said earlier, and you're taking these guys down here in the first couple of rounds. Sure. But it's a very interesting build. I do wish we would have hammered receiver a little more, but at the same time, I think Kenneth Walker is going to alleviate some of the wide receiver troubles with all the weekly flex weeks he's going to be able to produce. Yeah. So I don't hate it. Like I think it's got a puncher's chance, of course. Every one of these drafts do. So I'm a big fan, and like I said, it's tough to get CMC 102 some of these times. So the Madden curse isn't real. We have a chance.
How about some of the other things that you're thinking, just in terms of best ball, and maybe walk us through what was some of the highlights of your best ball drafting so far this offseason? How are you feeling about your teams? What's your exposure? Give us a couple minutes about best ball in general.
I mean, of course I'm feeling good. Obviously I won't feel good when the season ends, but so like I was telling you and I was telling the people here earlier, I do a majority of my drafting before the draft. So I try to capitalize on ADP value. I could look and show you where some of them were. I might try to pull that up. Because last year, Jahmyr Gibbs, like you tend to know, because I follow the draft as well. So you kind of hear it in your ear, like, oh, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to go really high. And
Yeah.
obviously he went higher than most people even thought he would go. I was drafting him at pick 70, 75 routinely. So
Nice.
like I was just trying to grab up as much value as I can. I did that with Jalen Wright this year. You saw his ADP was 140-ish. I
Hmm.
was drafting him in the early 200s. So
Nice.
it's all about grabbing value for me this offseason. I try to do that as much as possible. We did that here a little bit with Pat Fryermuth in our draft to round out our tight end room, so we didn't have to draft a third one and spend additional capital there. So there's so many ways you could play these best ball drafts. Like I said, there's no wrong way. If you want to go CJ Stroud after we went Lamar there, go for it. If you want to double tap elite tight end, go for it. If you want to completely ignore running back, go for it. I mean,
Yeah.
but Underdog does post the winning lineups usually from some of their contests, and you could see like, hey, this is where this guy won his draft, or what picks didn't matter. Because I think the winner had Kyron Williams and Jaden Reed in the last like 2 of the 4 rounds, and they had
Okay.
big week 17s. So it's really tough to get there. It's a lot of luck, but best ball is still growing. Like Underdog is still innovating. They just added college best ball. I'm sad I can't play it because of the state I live in, but that's not their fault, obviously. So they're expanding, and best ball keeps growing. There's so many formats. Maybe I could pull them up here if I could find the NFL window. So I'm just looking at them. There's weeks 1 to 12 or 1 to 14, and it's just a total accumulation 2 of 12. And then so if you win that, you know how I said we were advanced into the 3 pools, and you kept advancing
Yep.
and advancing. If you 2 out of 12, the sprint it's called, you're automatically dropped in the final group. In the last 3 weeks, whoever wins. So there's so many unique contests that you get into. There's an eliminator pool for, a lot of people do for work with the teams. There's that for your fantasy teams here. I forget, isn't that what's that called in Dynasty? I forget what that's called.
What's that?
Where the team gets dropped out, the lowest team, and then they put them
Oh,
all the way.
like the I should know this because this is a UK football term, but it's like a relegation.
Something like that, where they drop all the players to.
Oh, you're talking about a
Yeah, but that's
oh
Dynasty. They don't drop them here,
yeah,
obviously, but
yeah. That's just a draft. I can't remember the term for
it's all good. I'm blanking as well. And then, like I said, weekly winners. It's a weekly contest that your team's entered into every week. You win cash every week, and then of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the Scott Fishbowl satellite. You could enter a couple times. Top 500 get a guaranteed entry in the Scott Fishbowl next year. Money's
Nice.
going to a good cause. So a lot of exciting things with best ball, and like you said, my exposure. I'm gonna pull it up here. Like I said, a lot of Jalen Wright. I had a lot of Ramondre before the extension.
Yep.
If you capitalize on big news that you think is coming,
Yep.
there's a lot of value to be had. I'm trying to pull up my big boards from this year as well. The big board is the contest before. I have a lot of Jonathan Brooks, of course. Big on him then, big on him now.
Love it.
So a lot of value, but you can get burned because I'm sitting here, I'm looking at it. I have 23% Javonte Williams.
Okay.
That's gone south. I have
Yeah.
23% Michael Mayers. That Michael
Yeah.
Mayer obviously went south. So it's a risk.
Sure.
It's a risk
Sure.
drafting this early, but obviously, if you haven't tried best ball and you're in a state that is eligible to, give it a try. See how you like it. It's usually fun. You could draft slow drafts, 8-hour clocks, so you don't have to stare at your phone for the next hour. So it's a lot of fun, and it's my favorite thing to do in my spare time. If you couldn't tell by this hour episode that we're on.
And listen, if you like this best ball, if you haven't tried it out or only have done it a little bit and aren't sure about some of the strategies we're talking about, we also over at the Fantasy Football Universe have a hour-long interview with Tom Strachan of Fantasy Pros, the FF Sanctuary, and he goes through this. He's worked for Underdog as well, writing up all sorts of strategy content. He does something for Fantasy Pros right now with Andrew Erickson. They're on a weekly pod about best ball strategy too. So we have that available along with the stuff here with Ryan. So hopefully you learned something. we're available on TikTok, YouTube, fantasyfootballuniverse.com, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. We're on Apple Pods somewhere. We're just everywhere that you could possibly be.
You're everywhere in the universe.
Listen, and that's right. And you just were aptly named, Ryan. And what we are doing is we're just putting out daily content in the off season, and then through up into the end of the season and beyond. So please subscribe if you like this type of content. We'll be back again doing best ball stuff, doing redraft stuff, dynasty, etc. So let's see if I point the right way. For this guy,
you got it.
I am this guy. We are these guys, and we will see you guys later.